In the Clive Barker Podcast, longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. In episode 456, we go back into the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics with the 2013 annual and issues 9 through 12 of The Dark Watch. Plus some re-release news, and we get back to the feedback that didn't quite make it in time for episode 454. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver in Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over the Etsy shop to buy one of his original paintings or books. Follow the link in the show notes or click the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. You can still check out Stained Glass Tulip on his Facebook page, plus check out his videos going over the original painting The Bug Brothers and his intro to the 35th anniversary screening of Hellraiser. Those are both on a blog post on our website, and you can also find them on our YouTube channel. There are some paintings on his Etsy shop to check out. Mother and Child 2, The Stargazer, The Folk Singer, The Pearl, The Portal, Top of the World, and don't forget about his books, The Chimney Sweep's Tale and Celebrate Imagination. So all of that stuff, the money goes towards the Texas Children's Cancer Center, so please take a look. All right, well, welcome. This is episode 456 of the Clive Barker Podcast. Good morning, Jose. How's it going?
Hey, good morning, Ryan. Interesting morning. I had to get up really early today, take Sarah to the doctor because she did some eye surgery, but she's recovering well, so I got home with plenty of time to spare.
Yeah. I've had a weird week because we've moved our office to an old abandoned elementary school. While they remodel an office, we're getting like new cubicle parts and stuff. So everybody's had to move to this elementary school, and we've got internet problems. And of course, yesterday the big global problem with CrowdStrike. Yeah, the CrowdStrike
update.
Yeah, thanks Microsoft.
Yeah, I saw a video of the Delta and U.S. Airways or some other company, all their planes on the time lapse in the map from like where you can see all the plane flights in America. And as soon as that update hit, all those planes flying in and out, they started all grounding, landing and stuff. And all of a sudden there was just like a couple of planes flying around. It's like, I think they're still working on fixing some systems.
Yeah. Well, and 911 was out all over. Well, I mean, 911 and its equivalents were out all over the world.
All over the world?
Yeah.
This whole system is so fragile. Like if this whole infrastructure collapses, then a lot of stuff would stop working.
It was just a bad patch from Microsoft that did it.
Yeah. It was a security update that apparently broke the system.
Yeah. So that really messed up our office. Everybody coming in that had left their computer on overnight, which is most people, they don't shut them down. And so they had the blue screen of death when they came to work in the morning. So I just told just take your, because we have offline computers with the maps and stuff. And I said, just take those out into the field and hopefully everything will be fixed by the time you get back.
It's scary. It's scary that just a quick update can break this whole system around the world.
Yeah.
And I think I saw a picture of the Las Vegas Sphere with a blue screen of death. I don't know if it was real, but it was a little it was funny to see that. But
the blue screen of death looks a little better than it used to now.
I took the time to read some of these comics again, so this time we're going to be talking a little bit about the last 4 issues, right, of the Dark Watch?
Yeah, so Boom, the Dark Watch, 9, 10, 11, and 12. But before we do that one, we've got the 2013 annual. So before we get to the comics, we have a quick news from the Reef. Thanks to Ian Swanson, he pointed this out to us. Tumor Circus, there was a re-release of the Tumor Circus album, Meat Hook Up My Rectum, it's called, right? With the the Clive Barker Books of Blood cover with the Nazi snail on there.
Yes. Yep. And it's a Jello Biafra with members of Steel Pole Bathtub and the late, great Charlie Tolnay of King Snake Roost, Grong Grong, and Lubricated Goat.
I've known about this album forever, but I've never heard it. I don't know anything about, what it sounds like. I just, I've always known about this ever since Clive Barker Illustrator in like 91 because it was shown in there. But I've never heard it.
I've never bought the book. I know there was a book also called Meat Hook Up My Rectum that had a bunch of, and it was an anthology that had a bunch of signatures on it. One of them was a Clive Barker story, and I think it had a Clive Barker signature. And then they had this album, right? So I never had both of those. So I guess at least for the album, this might be your chance to buy. It's a pre-order for this album, and it's coming out in. It's 1,000 copies available. It's going to be a limited edition splatter vinyl. So it's the color is described as tentacle and plague tears.
Yeah.
So it's from Alternative Tentacles. We'll have a link for you guys to add to cart. It's pretty cool. This is a chance to listen to it if you never did.
And thanks, Ian, for bringing this to our attention.
Oh, hell yeah, Ian. Yeah. How you doing, man? Let us know.
We finished up with the news, so we can jump into Boom Studios Hellraiser comics.
That's right.
To start out with, we've got the 2013 annual, and mine is autographed by Ben Meares. It says, "For Ryan, burn in hell, Ben Meares" on the cover.
Hey, that's
silver
great.
Sharpie.
Did he sign it for you when we visited Seraphim?
Yeah, that's right. And I think they might have had those laying around. I can't remember.
I remember that. Yes, they had a bunch of extras there. Yeah, I think I grabbed a Nightbreed comic because they say, "Hey, take a Nightbreed comic." So yeah, this annual was called Good Intentions, right? 2013. So it's been 11 years since this one came out.
Well, Good Intentions it's got two parts. So Good Intentions is the first part, and then Something to Keep Us Apart is the second part.
Yeah, and the first part is still written by Brandon Seifert or Siefert. Yeah. I think it's because he was the guy who was coming up with the storyline for the regular comic. And so he's involved in this. But then Clive Barker and Ben Meares wrote the second part, Something to Keep Us Apart.
Yeah.
And this goes into a little more in depth into two subplots from the original story, right? So what happens is Leviathan's creating an army. Tumor thinks that he's going to be leading that army to invade Earth, but in fact, it's going to be to fight a different enemy.
Yeah.
And this comic book opens with that Good Intentions where we see Spencer now turned into the Legate, right?
Yeah. This
picks up right after the part where Spencer was serving, and I'm going to pronounce this in a better way, Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, right? This hell is a hell of fury. So,
and it's kind of, and you get to it by going through an oubliette or a pit in Leviathan's labyrinth.
Well, I mean, sure, that's been a border between the two hells. But I think if you die and you're a very furious person and you committed a lot of fury in your life and you've hurt people, whatever, you end up in this hell, right?
Yeah.
If you solve the box, you end up in Leviathan's hell. But if you die and indulged in the sin of fury, you end up in this. And we've got Spencer talking here with Butterfield, and he's checking the ranks, right?
Yeah, and of course, like we said last time, this is the Butterfield of the last illusion, who was a lawyer from hell, rather than the Butterfield of the Lord of Illusions, who was just like an apprentice to Nyx or whatever.
That's right. And so he's checking the troops, but the troops don't respect him because he just came in from the Leviathan kingdom, and he's a human, and they were fallen angels, right? They were demons. They were literal purebred demons.
So they keep calling him a monkey who, preaches and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he says, who are you to lead us in battle? He's like, well, I've led men in battle in the Great War. And he starts laughing like, the Great War? We fought the Great War between angels and stuff. You fought against other apes. So he's kind of like pushing him around. And then Spencer says, oh, well, I guess this is a challenge. And then Butterfield says, just try not to get killed. Spencer gets beat the crap out by this demon, right? He swats him with his tail. He smacks him, he punches him, and knocks him down. And then he kind of gloats over him, calling him a pathetic monkey. But Spencer in the floor, he's down, but he's not out. He kind of opens his eyes and smiles and kind of like swerves and jumps up and escapes his tail, and all of a sudden jumps up on his back and rips his head off.
Yeah. So I think maybe getting beat up was a little bit of an act, right? To have him let his guard down. It's a great splash cover here where he's tearing the demon's head off, and he says, "We're all creatures of fury. Are you going to serve your fury, or are you going to make your fury serve you?" And he just curb stomps the demon and stomps his head into pieces. Yeah. And then, he thought that was going to get him some respect, right? Yeah, and then another he's like sermonizing monkey. And then and he says like a clean slate indeed. You know, and it sounds like he's going to kill them all, I guess. Yeah. Well, he's going to have to fight a few more before they understand that he's going to lead them in battle, I guess. He said a clean slate because Spencer had said it's time to put the past behind us, and then Butterfield was like, a clean slate, my lord? Yeah. But it's like, it's not a clean slate because the demons don't respect him. We think he's still just a primate, a monkey. And he's going to have to teach them a lesson and lead them in battle. And then, then we move into the second part, which is something to keep us apart. And so this one, it's returning to the backstory of this character that was Kirsty's fiance, who I think is, at this point, Edgar, who is, I think at this point has died a couple of times. He was part of the Harrowers, right? So he died. Yeah. Kirsty became the Hell Priestess, and Edgar became a demon, a horned demon, a monster demon that was part of her Hell Cenobites. Yeah. And then he got killed by Spencer again as a Cenobite. And he ended up being resurrected again because, if someone dies and blood is spilled. The way Frank was resurrected. That's right. And we saw that happen, didn't we, in one of the comics? He came back to life. And then what we see is that since he's come back to life, he's just been trying his hardest to find a box that he can open to go back to hell and find Kirsty. Yeah, and so he goes to this guy who makes reproductions of boxes using Le Marchand's notes. William Romano, leader of Black Market Reproduction. So now we got bootleg Hellraiser boxes, right? Yeah, which I think they're trying to address the issue that, like, well, how can he get a puzzle box if they were all destroyed? And so there's a guy making reproductions, trying to follow instructions and stuff. Yeah, he says it's not the real deal. It's a fully functional replica built using Le Marchand's original notes. But he's at a table, right? We got a little bit of an opening scene of Hellraiser here. It's basically, what's your pleasure, sir? It's like, do we have a deal? Oh, and also they discuss, he says, well, this is a copy. And the guy says, does it work? And the guy says, yeah, it should work. It's like, oh, you didn't try it? Yeah, well, if I tried it, I wouldn't be here right now. Good point. So, yeah, Edgar is not going to pay that money. So what does he do? Yeah, so he stabs the guy in the hand, sort of pinning him to the table so he could just take it. And then the guy points a gun at him. And he's like, all right, fine. We'll just open it right here then. Well, yeah, the guy presses a button and closes the door and says, nobody steals from me. Where are you running to? He tries to shoot Edgar and misses. And then Edgar flips that desk where his hand is stuck with a knife to. Yeah. And so that just starts opening the box down because he's stuck, he's pinned to the table. Right. So he opens that fake box. And somehow it does open a door, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like they both just sort of teleport to this hell somewhere, and it's not the labyrinth; it's a different hell. So they come up in this weird sandy desert. The salesman of the fake box is like, "Oh no, the Cenobites are going to kill both of us." It's like, we're in hell. It's like, no, I've been in hell, and this isn't hell. So there's no labyrinth. There's no Leviathan. There's just this weird, desolate landscape of volcanic hell. And he's like, followed the directions, right? He's like, well, he's like Ash in the Army of Darkness, right? Well, not exactly.
It's almost like the Superman 2, right? Where Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, creates synthetic kryptonite.
I think that was Superman 3, wasn't it? Yeah, with the fake kryptonite. Yeah, the one that had...
I think so. Gene Hackman makes fake kryptonite.
They use tar or something as an ingredient.
Yeah, to make kryptonite. And that doesn't work, but it does make Superman... turn evil. Yeah. So
and he makes the Leaning Tower of Pisa straight, and
he goes to drink in a bar and stuff like that. It's a cool scene. Yeah. But so the guy, when he made the bootleg box, he didn't have all the materials, so he made all the boxes different with replacing little things here and there. So he was mixing the recipe for these boxes.
Yeah.
And apparently when they opened this one, they didn't end up in the right hell. They ended up in the hell of Abaddon.
Yeah, the Fury.
Yeah.
And so a dragon grabs them and scoops them up and takes them away so they can be judged.
Yeah, they're taken to this, like, almost like this Minos kind of guy, right? Like this big demon sitting on a chair. Who's the judge? He says, these men will be judged. Okay, let's bring forth the first. And it's a big red demon with hooves and big curled back horns, sharp teeth, and a shining blue glyph floating above his eyes.
Yeah. And I guess that's what allows him to judge people.
Yeah.
And so they judged the guy with the who made the box, and they said, "I smell avarice."
Mm-hmm. And he says, "Oh, you've been faking things and selling them as real things. So we're going to turn you into a bootleg version of you. So you're going to be turned into an article for other people's entertainment." So they turn him into a kind of a voodoo doll made out of flesh and skin and bones, and they throw him into the crowd of the demons of the pit. But Edgar, they don't want him there, right? They sniff him and they're like, "No, you don't belong here. I don't know what you're doing here, but."
Yeah, he's like, you're not welcome. You're from Leviathan's hell,
Yeah.
And he says, leave this place, and sort of teleports him back to where he started from.
Yep.
And when he gets back, he said he finds a big old sack or a crate full of puzzle boxes.
Yeah,
he's like, okay, I'll just try all of them until I find the one that takes me where I want to go.
To Kirsty. And so he opens another one, and this time he finds himself in a kind of like dimensional void, and Leviathan shows up, right? He's like,
yeah,
all right.
He says, I have a better use for you.
Yeah. So, okay, now he's got leverage on Kirsty, right? So he's got her boyfriend again, and he's probably going to be using that for leverage.
Everybody wants leverage against Kirsty.
Yeah, that's right. So I bought this one for the podcast through Comixology. So I got that one for $2.
Yeah, it's interesting to find out you can get these Boom Studio comics that way.
Yeah. So that's important, even though I think in the scheme of things, this annual doesn't really affect much of the story for the next 4 issues.
It explains why Butterfield and Spencer, who calls himself Leggett, right? It explains why they're friends when before they were kind of enemies.
Yeah.
And it also explains how the Cenobites captured Edgar, which we find out later that happened through the course of this series.
That's right. And so the story continues with the Dark Watch issue 9, right?
Yeah.
Which was written by Clive Barker and Brendan Siefert and art by Tom Garcia. So on the cover, we have a human-like Spencer being carried inside hell by Chat and a couple of other demons, and a big fiery flame behind everything. So,
yeah, it's a cool-looking cover.
Yeah, I like that hammer Cenobite that has a big crab arm. You see that on the cover?
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, it's like his head is like a hammer or an axe, and then his arm is like a big crab claw.
Yeah, and he's got crab legs. He's got like 4 legs.
That's right, yeah. That's cool. So it opens up with Demoore's investigations office, right? So the Harrowers are here, and the last comic.
And now they're arguing about, hey, what are we supposed to do? Tiffany left without us, and she closed the door.
Right. It's Norton, the name of this guy that I was trying to get.
That's it. I said Nelson, but yeah, Norton.
Yeah, you're close. You're close.
Yeah.
So they're discussing what to do now that Tiffany went into hell and left them behind to try to locate Kirsty and rescue her.
Yeah.
And Norton's like, yeah, I'm not going back into hell. I'm not going to play this game anymore because he thinks that this game is only going to lead to all of them either dying or being turned into Cenobites.
Yeah, he's like, I was okay with it when we were just finding these boxes and smashing them. Yeah. But, like, now going into hell and fighting demons, that's a little bit much.
While they're arguing, there's a derelict that opens up the box, and the light goes out inside the office. Yeah, so the portal to hell opens while they're discussing, and then Tiffany and Kirsty, still the priestess, come out. They're going to tell them that there's a problem in hell, and she's like, you probably should see this. And the guys are like, yeah, no, we're not going back into hell. And Rajiv is even especially angry because once he was brought back from hell with blood, he turned himself into one of those vampires that suck their blood to survive, and he's not happy about that.
He blames Harry D'Amour.
Kirsty confronts Norton by saying, hey, you know why we're willing to sacrifice so much? Because you never lost a loved one to the Cenobites, The Harrowers are kind of split on this, right? Norton leaves, wishes them luck. Theo is kind of pondering, and Rajiv goes into hell, and Theo ends up going, but he's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, and Rajiv seems like the only reason he wants to go is probably to get back at D'Amour. Yeah.
So they got to the Abaddon's hell, right?
Yeah.
Where we see, and I really love the whole design of it. Have you noticed that Abaddon is almost like a version of what Leviathan was supposed to be in the original script for Hellbound?
Right, a kind of a big blobby creature with tentacles and stuff.
That's right, isn't it? I mean, I remember seeing that when I read Peter Atkins' script. It used to say that he was supposed to be like a big blob of evil flesh, right, with tentacles. Yeah. That's why the Channard gets a tentacle on his head, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I do remember that part. So I always thought if that's something that Ben Meares or Clive or Brandon Seifert went to and decided that, hey, we could use this since we already have that.
Yeah, exactly. So one is kind of chaotic and a mass of flesh, and the other one is more symmetrical and orderly.
Yeah, in that sense, they're both different sides of the same spectrum, right? Because one of them wants to impose order, and the other one is related to fury.
The hell of Leviathan is desire, and the hell of Abaddon is fury.
And it's a hell that doesn't seem to have a lot of architecture, right? It's kind of a desolate landscape, and a lot of it is just a big abyss where everything is flying all the time. They all have wings and fly around.
Yeah. And the demons there are insectoid, pretty much.
Yeah. It reminds you a little bit of and also you see the tortured people who are being flung around Abaddon, right? Yeah. There's like a hell where they're just flying around. It kind of reminds me of that Dante's Inferno hell where the souls are just floating in the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Or the cover of Slayer's Hell Awaits, right, with the demons that are carrying guys around and eviscerating them and stuff.
So Spencer meets Sybil, the kind of the voice of Abaddon, and they say that, our Lord conveys his pleasure that you have joined our righteous cause. And then he says, but there's a message. Unless you do something about her, Kirsty Cotton will be the ruin of us all. His face here in the last panel is like, Kirsty again.
Yeah.
Cuts back to Leviathan's hell, and then we've got D'Amour talking to Leviathan and finding out an interesting thing. He's been thinking that Leviathan was going to create this army to invade the Earth, but actually Leviathan's saying, no, we're making an army, but we're not invading the Earth. We're gonna fight a different enemy.
And so Leviathan's been keeping all that on like a need-to-know basis.
Yeah, very much so. He's very cryptic and he's just telling him now. We go back to the oubliette where the big abyss is. And the oubliette is basically just a big fortress built around a giant hole in the ground. I thought it was more like a small.
With Harry D'Amour, there's a misprint or a typo or something. He says, "Oh, Tumor, should say you are quite renowned in hell as a detective, but it says choir, Quire."
Oh my God, that's a big misspell right there. Yeah, I think they meant to say quite renowned. Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, the important part is that as soon as they get to the oubliette, Tiffany, Kirsty, Theo, and Rajiv, they find a big army of Cenobites joining them there, being led by Tumor. And he's going to reveal that this army that we have, it's going to be to fight Abaddon's hell, because Abaddon's going to invade us. We got to be prepared for that. Yeah, right. So these Legionnaires are, like you said, very insectoid, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're big. They're bigger than humans by a lot.
They got this carapace, red carapace, and they got 4 wings in their backs and a scorpion's
like a
tail.
And human faces.
And human faces, yeah. They're almost like a kind of a hellish manticore, right?
Yeah. And their scorpion tails, they can stab people with them.
Yeah, swipe people, slam them, spike them. So the fight begins. We got Cenobites and Harrowers versus Abaddon's Legionnaires.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a rough fight because the Harrowers are they don't just have to fight Abaddon's troops. They also have to be careful of the Cenobites because the Cenobites don't really like the Harrowers either. So
yeah.
But the good thing is they have those little talismans that protect them from Abaddon's demons. So if they try to touch them, they have a kind of a force field bubble around them that pushes them back.
So that'll protect them from from the Cenobites or from the Fury demons.
I do see a part here where Rajiv tries to use his vampire powers to suck the energy off of one of these Legionnaires, and it kind of works. He kind of starts like draining him a bit, and his eyes glow green, but then the Legionnaire kind of smacks him with his tail and smacks him back. And they ask him like, hey, what happened? He's like, oh, I feel stronger, but it hurts. And so now Tiffany and Rajiv are going to be like tag teaming these Legionnaires, and he grabs them and takes their energy, and she comes in and cuts their tail off, cuts their head off. It's not an ideal situation because we see Theo is helping out, and all of a sudden Theo bumps into a Cenobite, and the Cenobite looks at Theo and is like, oh, look, an enemy. Smack. And he
stabs him with a sword.
Yeah. He kills the Harrower. I mean, the Cenobites would kill the Harrowers, even if Tumor was like, hey, these are my friends. But that did happen. So Theo dies. Rajiv runs up to him. Tiffany is like, let's find Kirsty and get out of here before more demons come. And Rajiv just decides to defect and jumps into the pit. So he goes into Abaddon's hell.
And so he's defected, and then at the very end, they kind of lost this fight here, and so he's like, well, we've got another plan to keep Kirsty in check, because Abaddon had talked to Legate Elliot Spencer, right? And he's like, okay, well we've got leverage for her. We've got her father.
Right.
Larry Cotton.
Right. So Rajiv is being interrogated, and he says, well, I defected because you're my enemy's enemy. It's a shame that it wasn't Tiffany who defected or Kirsty. But then it's like,
Yeah. He kind of treats him like he calls him inconsequential.
Now, the last time we spoke with writer Peter Atkins on the podcast, he did tell us, he did approach this. He was very, very clear about this. He does not think that Frank should have been in Leviathan's hell.
Larry, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Larry. Yeah. Larry, sorry, I said Frank.
Right. And so here they're saying, well, Larry was a furious person. He had a lot of rage in him. And I agree with Peter Atkins here that I don't really see him that way.
When they said he had some anger in him, I did think back to the movie Hellraiser, and I remember when Larry is watching a game of boxing.
Yeah.
He's a little bloodthirsty, right? He's getting really into the game. He's like, he's like moving his fists and like, come on, get him.
That seems pretty harmless, though. I mean, is that worth going to hell over?
I don't know. But, that's a throwaway line just to justify that. But, I agree with Peter Atkins. I don't think that Larry belongs in hell, either Abaddon or Leviathans.
Yeah.
He was a victim, right? He was killed by the Cenobites. He didn't even open the box, and he was killed by demons. And I'm not saying if you get killed by a demon, you get sent to heaven, but I don't think he did anything to deserve going to hell.
No, I don't think so either.
Then again, I don't know.
So we're moving on to issue 10.
That's right. But anyway, they got leverage on Garcia, and that's the important part. Issue 10 opens with a cover of the female Cenobite, right? Yeah. In the labyrinth, holding up a box. And we got a couple of Abaddon's demons flying in the sky behind it.
Kind of more stylized. They look like all wings and tentacles, pretty much.
Yeah. So, again, this is written by Clive Barker and Brandon Seifert and art by Tom Garcia. So this is a pretty stable part of the story where we're not seeing like a lot of art changes or writing changes.
And one thing we didn't mention before is that, well, maybe we did a while back, on a previous episode, but Kirsty doesn't have her pins anymore. So she still has a Cenobite look to her because she's wearing the white robes and the red sash. Yeah, but she doesn't have the grid on her head or the pins. She just kind of looks like a pale person who dresses weird.
Right. The pins are now on Moor's face, and by the end of the story, they'll be on someone else's face, but spoilers.
Right, yeah.
It almost makes it seem like the pins are the things that give the status symbol. They're like the crown, right?
Yeah. And so here we have Kirsty and Tiffany. Now that they've got a little bit of a break, they give each other a hug and talking about whether they should really go on with all this or Tiffany's not a Cenobite. Maybe she should go back home. Because, nothing good's going to happen. You're just going to get killed. And Harry Tumor keeps trying to talk her into becoming a Cenobite.
That's right. It's kind of funny.
It makes it feel... And him not caring about, what's happening in India, all of this kind of makes it feel like Harry's kind of changed and he's not really the same person that he was. Like, he cares more about what's going on in Leviathan's hell than he does on Earth, which is not why he did all this in the first place.
He is the ruling pontifex of Leviathan's Hell. So he does have, I understand he has duties and responsibilities to protect and stay here because he's also what's keeping the Cenobites in check from invading the Earth. He can't really just send all the Cenobites going to hell because there's not enough Cenobites. And there's a lot more demons coming from Abaddon's kingdom, which they find out as soon as they look underneath the oubliette. Underneath that, there are a lot more of those legionnaires. They're just like broods, right? There are like these broods of legionnaires, and a big cloud of them starts growing, and they start fighting them. But all of a sudden, they discover that Abaddon's demons are kind of flying past them, right? A little bit past them.
Well, and before that, so they're like, okay, we got to jump down in the hole, and that means we need wings. And so you get to see these Cenobite wings that are just basically these wings that hook right through your shoulder blades.
I know. They're like these mechanical.
Yeah, and Tiffany's like, those look like they hurt. And she says that, and Kirsty says that's because they do.
Right.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of like, you're out of your element here, Tiffany. You can't, it's not like you're going to put these wings on. You're not a Cenobite. You can't handle doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, basically it's like you're a human, and if you get yourself into a war between demons, you're just going to die.
Yeah.
So totally she can't go with them. So she stays behind, but also the female Cenobite stays behind, and she's now who's taken over hell for a while Tumor is in the hole. She's like, you're in charge. And then she's in charge, and all of a sudden she feels the call of the box. Someone's opening a box. And she's like, oh, okay, someone's opening a box. Great timing. And she sends 2 Cenobites to see who it is and bring that soul into her hell. But then Leviathan says, no, they're calling on you. You're going to have to, I want you to go see this person. And who's coming into hell? It's Edgar.
Yeah. And one interesting part too about about him putting her in charge, they're like, hey, you don't even know if you can trust her. And he's like, yeah, that's a big improvement over all the other Cenobites because I know I can't trust them.
She's helped them before, right? With
And I think they're a little judgmental about
Heaven's reply.
The female Cenobite. I mean, she's been trustworthy all the way up to this point.
Right. She's still on board with Leviathan's plans, but she also knows the importance of certain characters, and that in this case, she needs their help as well. So, like I said, when they go into that big hole with the flying Cenobites and the flying demons and the flying tortured souls. We see Rajiv has gotten himself a new body, right? He's got a big armored red insectoid body.
Yeah. So, do you think that's because he drained the blood out of them, or because they transformed him?
They transformed him, I think, because the more talks to him, he says, "Rajiv, what did they do to you?" And he says, "Only what I asked." You know, they made him more.
So it's not about him draining their blood.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, they gave me more strength, but as for my body, there weren't a lot of options. And while they're talking, Kirsty just jumps in and like, Demore, stop talking. We're at war. And she starts fighting with Rajiv because she thinks, he's defected. He's their enemy. And she starts trying to kill him. And Demore's like, no, you don't get to kill him. He was an ally. But she's like, well, he's taking a different side now. And that's the consequences of becoming a monster. And of course, hey, look who's talking, right? A monster? You mean like becoming the priestess of hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get
she's
this
like,
part,
okay,
though,
fine,
because...
Rajiv, get out of here. And pray we don't run into each other again.
So did Rajiv really intend to defect to Abaddon, or did he just do this as a way of getting powers to use against Abaddon? Because if he really hated Demore that much, I feel like he would have just flown into Demore and started killing him. But
I think
he just flies away.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think that he didn't really know what he was getting himself into, and he's over his head.
Yeah. So Demore ends up face-to-face with Spencer, and he says, you're all going to die. Demore first. So they're fighting while flying, and Demore tries to trap Spencer with his barbed wire chains. It doesn't work. He hurts him, and he gets a little pissed. And so he sees Kirsty Cotton trying to help Demore, and Abaddon told him that she's important. She needs to be destroyed. And he's like, okay, well, Cotton, that's the last time you meddle in my affairs. And so the other Cenobites they come in and they swoop in and they help Kirsty and Harry Demore get a kind of a breathing break. And Demore is kind of like, he doesn't know what to do, right? He's like, well, he's a little overwhelmed because there's so many demons. There's not enough Cenobites. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And Kirsty's like, you know what you have to do. And he's like, retreat.
Yeah. Now there's this huge cloud of these guys, and they flew right past the Cenobites because they kind of like don't care about them. They have a goal. They're trying to get to this portal that Elliot Spencer opened in, previous episodes.
Yeah. In Leviathan's Hell that leads to a place in India, right? Or close to it. And so it turns out that Abaddon's plan all along was not just to take over Leviathan's Hell. He's actually going to go through that portal. He's going to send his demons there. He's going to conquer Earth. He's going to invade Earth. So that's what's happening right now. Demonic forces killing thousands of people.
These demons never get to go to the Earth.
Right, because they're not bound by the box or anything like that. They can just go through the portal, and now that it's ripped into our reality, and they can just fly through. They don't have to wait for people to die and go to hell. They can just go there and kill them themselves.
So that was the end of issue 10, and so now we're on to 11. That has a cover with Kirsty Pinhead with somebody sneaking up behind her with a knife. I guess that's Frank.
Yeah, with red glowing eyes. It's just a silhouette.
Yeah, it's a weird cover. It doesn't really have anything to do with this issue.
It's written by the same people, same art, so the team has not changed between issues. Yeah. And we open up with Norton. He's in the human world, he's in our world, and he's seeing the news of what's happening in India, in Calcutta. I think this is supposed to be the place where Spencer was transformed into Pinhead, right?
Right, and so now they're saying, previously it was explained that it was just a movie and, with special effects, but clearly that's not the case because people are dying. Like, well, people died before. I don't, how did they account for that?
Yeah, that's a very kind of quick and easy throwaway line there. Yeah, well, the authorities are saying it wasn't real. It was shooting a sci-fi movie. The CGI effects are made in the computer. You can't see them, right? So, I mean, you don't see things flying around. They don't make CGI fly around in real life.
Yeah, that's all done in post-production.
Yeah. Anyway.
So my question to you is, so Kirsty needs help, right? And so she gets a puzzle box from Tiffany, the one that she uses to summon Harry D'Amour. Kirsty opens this box, and then this weird Cenobite skeleton guy comes out. And they talk about him like she's, has met him before, but I don't remember this guy at all. Do you?
Yeah, he appeared while she was trapped inside that illusion thing with Spencer.
The memory orb thing?
Yeah, I think he appeared there.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the one who talked about who her baby was and what it meant or stuff like that, remember?
Oh.
It was a previous issue for sure. I think I've seen him before.
I don't remember this guy. But yeah, he comes up and he comes around and he gives her cryptic advice. And D'Amour gets mad because she's not really listening.
Right. So Kirsty thinks, I wish I had a box, and surprise, surprise, very conveniently, Norton appears because when he was looking at the news, he went to his files, opened a drawer, and had one lament configuration. So is he still in D'Amour's office, do you think, or is this like his own office now? And why did he have a box? That's one of those things I'm a little confused about.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, it is. It is. It is D'Amour, because I see in the last panel in one of the pages, you see the glass door saying D'Amour. Okay. So he grabbed one from D'Amour's files. I guess it was one the Harrowers had kept when they found out they shouldn't be destroying them. And so he shows up, and since he also has a talisman, the Cenobites couldn't attack him. So he found Tiffany, and then he brought a box.
Yeah.
So
Tiffany
D'Amour
has the box that D'Amour gave them to be able to summon him with.
Right. So D'Amour says, look, I can't let you go to India with all the Cenobites, but I can give you a few because we don't have enough. And if you can go in there, see what you can do. Yeah. In the meantime, the female Cenobite comes over to Kirsty very quietly and says, hey, I want to show you something. And they walk, and she sees that Edgar is actually in a cell in hell. And Kirsty is very shocked.
He's got like an iron bar going through his ankles, and he's got hooks going through his wrists.
Yeah, that's not a fun situation to be in.
Yeah.
But basically, this is the part where the female Cenobite is saying, hey, look, he is in here. If you wish your lover return to your arms once the war is through, you will also have to serve Leviathan's will. So she's basically letting her know, look, I'm just a pawn in this. I'm not pulling the shots here, but Leviathan wants me to tell you that he's got your boyfriend, and you have to keep serving him. Otherwise, you'll be able to give him back to you. If not, basically, they're going to keep him. So she's got a decision to make. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, right. And so we learned previously that the other side has her dad, Larry. Right, so she's going to be kind of stuck having to make a choice. Right. But we haven't gotten there yet. And so
Tiffany and the Harrowers are out in India now. They ran through the portal, and they went to fight the demons who are invading India. Norton's there too.
Rajiv joined back with the Cenobites because he's like, hey, they're attacking my home. He's from India, so he's not going to put up with that.
That's right. So now he's also on their side. And unfortunately, Norton gets killed because one of the Legionnaires drops a huge rock on him and crushes him.
Yeah, because the talisman is just to protect them from demons, but it's not going to protect them from a rock falling on their heads. So they've kind of figured out a way to take out the Harrowers, and so they start all grabbing chunks of like walls from buildings and stuff and trying to drop them on people. That's
smart. That's cool. That's well written. I kind of like that they did that. That was clever. And Rajiv tries to protect Tiffany, but unfortunately, he's not going to be a match for a whole bunch of his other demons around him. So they kind of just rip him to pieces, unfortunately.
Yeah. They all kind of grab a limb and he's sort of drawn and quartered by these other Legionnaires. So
unfortunately, his head only has time to say, I'm ready for this to be over, and he dies.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kirsty is wearing her hellish spear, and she's covered in blood. And she's like, I can keep doing this all night. And
like Captain America.
I guess in between Rajiv's death And the next page, Tiffany was turned into a Cenobite.
Yeah, Tiffany and it seems like they cut a corner there.
Yeah. They certainly did,
maybe they wanted it to be like the shocking revelation like it was for Kirsty to see her.
Two pages afterwards, Eve dies and Tiffany is human. And then we cut to Kirsty killing demons, and all of a sudden, Tiffany is a demon now. So she's a Cenobite. She's dressed in white. She's got a white uniform. She's like a white dress with some leather straps on her shoulders. Everything is white. She's got a giant butcher's knife, or two butcher's knives. Her head is she's like scalp. Her skull has been cut around and taken out. You see the exposed brain, right?
Yeah, and there's these metal wires that are holding the skin back from the top of her head. Yeah, like creating two horns or two, I don't know, 2 ears or something. Yeah, which are the flaps of her skin. And then there's like a weird mechanical design across her face that's just like the wires that make those, that are the same wires that are holding the skin back on the back of her head. They kind of make a little grid across her nose and stuff. Yeah, and they go inside her nose. Okay, and her skull. So Kirsty gets very shocked. She says, oh, no, not you too. It can't be. And she gets hit in the back of the head and gets knocked out. And she gets taken to Abaddon's hell by Spencer's troops. Yeah, instead of just killing her. Yeah. And he basically is just saying, hey, we got you here. So, I just have one message for you. Don't cross Abaddon or else. And she's like, or else what? Yeah. It's like, you're going to threaten me? It's like, oh, no, we're not threatening you. We're threatening your family. And they bring out her skinless dad, Larry. And also his dad is horrified by how she's been turned into the priestess of hell. So she's like, what did these monsters do to you? Yeah, Jesus, Kirsty, what did these monsters do to you? Yeah. And she's like, it's a long story. Yeah, yeah. Which it is. It's spanned a whole bunch of issues of this comic so far. So she said, Spencer, you lied to me. You told me that. And he says, I told you your father was not in Leviathan's hell, which is true. So, okay. Actually, she didn't lie. She said he said he is in his own hell, child, just as you are in yours. Quite unreachable. Yeah. Anyway, so he says the old man had a temper. This is the throwaway line that they put in here, like you said earlier, that, that's how they decide to explain that Larry went to hell. He had a temper. It's like he didn't really seem to have a temper. And the only thing that he, supposedly did was it turns out he didn't actually do it at all, right? It was a trick where he was like, yeah, he was a mad dog and I had to put him down. That wasn't even Larry. That was Frank. And what Frank did to Larry, all Larry ever did, like you said, was just be a victim. Right. So Kirsty's getting really frustrated because she doesn't understand why she's such an important player in all of this and why everybody just wants her to join their faction. Mm-hmm. And he says, nobody's going to tell you why your life is the way it is. Okay, so she pulls out the Le Marchand device that Harry the Moor gave her to call him. And she starts flicking with it. And it's like, oh, no, she's going to try to escape. And it's like, no, that doesn't work in hell. So she's not going to be going anywhere. But this is the help that she was talking about earlier with the Moor. Yeah, this is the guardian angel that she thought might help her. Yeah, and all he does to help her is give her advice, basically. Yeah. And so she finds herself in this kind of broken glass world where there's this spiky skeleton that's telling her what's going on is her fault. He tried to help her twice. He can help her one last time, but that's it. He says, look, what's been done cannot be undone, but once a garment has been ripped, it can be mended. So that's the advice he's giving her. So basically, I think the foreshadowing is that people can be put back to their human selves again. Right. Like what we saw in Hellbound, right? When Shenard took the powers away from the Cenobites. Yeah, I think he's referring to how to fix the situation. What was ripped can be mended. He's telling her that the portal can be closed, which is what they're going to arrive at that conclusion anyway. So she doesn't really get it at first, but then he gives her this thing, right? Like this weird, creepy blob of tentacles and organs.
And she asks him if it's a weapon. He says, well, all things are weapons when used as weapons. And use it when the time is right. So it's one of those MacGuffins, right? It's like, oh, you'll know when the time is right?
Yeah.
Well, the Matrix is going to open and save everything.
Yeah. Who is right?
Little Transformer reference there.
Not by a Decepticon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so who is this guy? Right? I mean, he seems pretty powerful, but
I felt like they referred to this as kind of like a guardian angel of Kirsty, but I think that's a symbolic way of referring to it. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure who it is, but part of the mystery is what makes it fun, I guess. Yeah. So Spencer is going to give her the ultimatum, right? So he's going to hold Larry up by his neck, the skinless body of her father, and says, okay, enough stalling. What's it going to be? Are you going to pick your father or your lover? Because she needs to serve either Leviathan or Abaddon.
Yeah, and the cliffhanger there is she goes, I don't know, and it says to be concluded, meaning that the very next episode is the last Dark Watch.
But she knows exactly what option she's going to take.
Yeah, but they wanted a cliffhanger ending.
That's right.
For that issue. And I love the cover on this one, number 12.
Oh, it's Spencer. It's Spencer turned into a demon.
I'm seeing like a legionnaire with the wings and the long claws and stuff.
Right. And look at his forehead. He's got the horned crown like Spencer.
Oh, does he? Okay, I thought that was just one of the legionnaires.
No, I think, at least I think that's supposed to be Spencer in legionnaire body because he's got the crown of thorns, see?
Oh, yeah.
Basically, Kirsty wants to know what does Abaddon want. And what Abaddon wants is just for her to sit this one out and not do anything until Abaddon has conquered Earth. And says, if you do anything, then your father suffers. So basically, it's like they would have her in their pocket forever, right? Because there's nothing she could do. You know, they could always say, well, if you want to leave, we'll kill your father. If you don't do what we say, we kill your father. So, of course, the only logical choice is to say no. And so she flies away and wraps her sash around Butterfield's neck and kind of takes off with Butterfield. Butterfield's like,
and Butterfield is basically all neck now because he's a worm.
All neck. Yeah, he is.
But then, how does she fly? She doesn't have those wings anymore, right?
I guess. But she's got her, priestess powers, right?
Well, then why didn't she get the wings before in the other episode or other issue?
Yeah, you raise a good point, dude. I mean, I think that she needed to have wings
when it happened, but then I started thinking about it. Like, well, wait a minute, can she fly or not?
I think they forgot to give her wings here. I'm not sure, man, because you're right. To go down, she needed wings. Doesn't she need wings to go up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Spencer starts laughing. He's like, ha, 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 ha. And they're like, what are you laughing about? Should we go after them or not? He goes, no, Butterfield's already dead. And then you see Butterfield's like head falling out of the sky.
Of course, I think it implies that off screen, Kirsty summoned chains and destroyed whatever demons were trying to follow her so she could escape. And they're like, are we just going to let her escape? And he's like, shouldn't we do something? Oh, he says, I am. So he wants to keep Larry alive and intact. We need this wretch intact as a bargaining chip. Okay.
Yeah, the other demon says that. He's like, no, I want her to feel bad for what she did to her father.
When he said, we need to do something, and Spencer said, I am, he walked over to Larry and kind of tied him up in a knot, right?
Yeah.
That's
like
the demon saying, hey, what are you...
together, like made him like a pretzel.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why the demon was saying, hey, we need that guy intact like a bargaining chip. It's like, no.
No, he says that, he's not a bargaining chip, so we're going to make her feel really bad about her decision.
Yeah. I mean, she said no, so that's what happened.
Yeah.
She's gone back to Leviathan's Hell, so she's showing that weird tentacle seed to Tumor, and she says, I wish I knew what this was. They're trying to figure out, and she's saying he was very cryptic, and Tumor says, well, you probably just wasn't paying attention. They're arguing because it's the end of the world, and they don't know what the secret weapon's supposed to be or how to use it. And then he says, what did the guy tell you when he gave you that? And she says he talked about a torn garment that can be mended. And it's like, what? It's like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, what does he want? He's like, well, isn't it obvious? It's the oldest trick in the book. So basically, as if there's a hole where Abaddon is invading Earth, then what we need to do is just close that hole, mend that hole. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to go back to the hole. They're going to fight the Legionnaires. They kill the Legionnaires that are guarding the portal to Earth. And then she comes over to the hole and she unleashes that seed. And that seed starts growing tentacles, right? It starts spreading and getting bigger and getting wider and like stitching the edges of the portal between hell and Earth and kind of just closing it and pushing it closed until it just disappears.
Yeah, so now the Legionnaires are all cut off from their hell that they come from.
So now they're like, hey, now we're left behind in Leviathan's hell. And Spencer is mad. The Legionnaires are disoriented. And Kirsty is transported all of a sudden into a white void to meet Leviathan, just like Spencer. Yeah. And so like Leviathan is now trying to tell them what needs to happen. Yeah, so everything could go back to normal. It's
cool the way they did this because it's like parallel conversation. He's talking to Kirsty and Spencer at the same time, saying the same thing to both of them.
Yeah. So he's saying that if we don't do anything, Abaddon's going to destroy the labyrinth. He's saying you guys are the only ones who can close the big hole inside the oubliette. Because otherwise, we've closed the doorway that goes to Earth, but there's still the big hole between the two hells where Abaddon could just come in and destroy Leviathan's domain. So he says, basically he's proposing that they help him in exchange for their heart's desire. Anything in his power to give. And so he's like, why should I help you? And it's like, well, in exchange for closing the hellhole, I'll grant your heart's desire. Is that truly so little a thing to be discarded so easily? And it kind of drops off in that cliffhanger, right? So we go back to hell where the remaining Cenobites are finding the remaining Legionnaires. Yeah. And all of a sudden they feel a big earthquake and they see that the hole inside the oubliette and that was serving as a portal to invade hell is closing. And all of the Legionnaires are scared and like, hey, what's going on? And they try to fly into the hole inside the oubliette, but it's closed. They just kind of hit the walls and get bloody noses, and it's like they're not going to go through. Yeah. And Tumor is like, all right, let's kill the rest of the troops now before. And then he's like, ow, like fuck, his pins are flying off of his face. Yeah. Right. And so he sees a little magic trail of blue light holding the pins, and he follows them around the corner. It's like, oh shit. And he's like, that's right, Harry Tumor, I've returned. And we see the Hell Priest again. Yeah. Spencer is now back to being the Hell Priest. He's taken back his mantle as leader of the Cenobites. After like 30 some comics, right? Or 40. He's put back to the way he was. And we have the fastest wrap-up in comic book history ever, because the next panel is Harry Tumor surrounded by tentacles, ripping off every piece of Cenobite out of him. He's like, what is this? And they say, it's okay, Harry. And the next panel after that is Harry Tumor is fully dressed and recovered in human form, along with Kirsty and Tiffany. They're all back to human form. Yeah. That is the fastest transformation I've ever seen in this series. They even give them their clothes back. I know. Yeah. So she's saying, I can't to Elliot Spencer, I can't believe you agreed to be Leviathan's pet again. And he's like, well, I'm not just a pet. It's like he got more power and his position is a little higher. He got a raise. Yeah. Yeah, he got a raise. So he's like, well, deal is a deal, but just as Leviathan gave all of your humanities back and gave you safe passage out of hell, you're safely out of hell now, and it's Leviathan's promise to you fulfilled. So he calls up Chains and he rips off the body of Edgar. He tears him apart, kills him, rips his head off, and just leaves his dead body there. And he did say that if she didn't choose to serve Leviathan, that they wouldn't give her Edgar back. So they take Edgar.
Oh, I see. Because
she didn't remain as priestess of hell.
To not help Leviathan anymore.
She says, "Spencer, you bastard, I'm going to fucking kill you." He's like, "Come now, Kirsty. Did you truly believe you could steal a happy ending? Only pain." So, and it ends like that. I shall see you all again very soon.
Yeah. And so that's the end of Hellraiser, The Dark Watch. And I
guess their heart's desire was to be turned back to humans and be returned to Earth, right?
Yeah. The next time we visit these, we'll be talking about The Road Below, which I believe is another 12 issues, I think, or is it 4? I forget.
It was a little confusing. Heaven's Reply was more confusing than this. A Dark Watch, I thought, made more sense. It was better written. They kept the same artist throughout most of it. And
writer, having the same artist and the same writer really helped, I think, with the Dark Watch. And I think that the two opposing Hell factions was a neat idea, too.
I liked it, yeah. I thought, why not? I mean, back in the day when we used to be in the Hellbound Web forum, there used to be a fan fiction site, and there used to be like all sorts of little short stories written by Hellraiser fans. Yeah. And a few of those would, I guess, circle around.
Facing away from the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. A couple of those stories would involve, what about if there's demons in hell? Why aren't there like angels or other demons? Yeah. Like there was some guy who also made a story where it was supposed to be Leviathan fighting another demon. Like I forgot the other name of the demon, but it wasn't Abaddon, of course, but it was something else like Behemoth or something like that. It was Leviathan, Behemoth, and then there was another demon. I don't know if that's even still up in the Cenobite, in the Cenobite.com Hellbound Web forums.
Right.
But I remember some stories like that where Leviathan would have other gods in hell and stuff like that. So there's always been people wanting to show the other sides or other factions in this story. I remember another guy had written one about the Anchorites. They were going to be the angels to the Cenobites. Some fan fiction out there is pretty fun to read, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and actually, this kind of brings us to one of the comments that I had put on here for discussion. On YouTube, at Cheese20044 said, "Hey guys, I've been trying to find this lost media of Hellraiser, the Hellraiser manga I remember hearing someone told you guys about, and they said they found the manga, but I can't find it anywhere. So did you guys ever do a video on it, or did you do a video on it for some reason I can't find, and you found it? Could you tell me where, when there are scans of it? Big fan of your guys' work, big fan of Hellraiser or Clive, but I try to watch every single one of your podcasts." So yeah, that was the YouTube and I thought this is kind of more your area. I don't really know. I don't think I've ever seen the manga except for like maybe a screenshot here or there.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So I know what he's talking about. There used to be this one image, right, one page of the Shadows in Eden that had Kirsty talking to the Cenobites, and then Frank is also in the same page, and we see the Cenobites, and Kirsty's solving the box. So a lot of fans along the years have been trying to track that down, and there was one called Jeremy Bowen who started the Hellraiser Manga Project. And that's a page that's on Facebook. I'm going to put the link in the show notes here. I'm adding it right now. So everybody can now go there and read the whole manga. He scanned the whole thing, and he found out what it was, and the whole thing is there. So I'm going to link that to the show notes.
Okay.
Oh shoot.
And so Cheese20044, if you're listening to this, you'll want to go to our website because links don't work in YouTube descriptions. Right, so you'll want to go to our website to be able to click on the show notes link.
So yeah, go ahead and read that. I think there's a Facebook photo album. It's got like 30 something pages, and you can see the whole story of it. It's pretty cool. We should actually look into this and cover it for the for a future episode, Ryan, I think.
Yeah, that would be fun. I've never read it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that would be neat.
It was from a magazine called Bear Club from Japan.
Oh, okay.
That's where the story came out. And
so is the Hellraiser manga project, I'm assuming, is translated into English then?
No, it's just scanned for now. They were trying to get someone to translate it from Japanese. But hey, maybe you can help.
I can try. I could do a little bit, but I'm it's been since 1995 when.
Yeah, I did tag you on that like a year ago. This came out a year ago in October of 2022. Actually, 2 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I tagged you and said, Ryan,
answer.
you know some Japanese, and yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be hard, but I'll give it a try. I'll see what I can see.
This kind of came and went, and I don't think it made a lot of ripples, but it should, because it's great that for many years, a handful of people that I know were desperately trying to find out what this was, and finally Jeremy was able to find it. I don't think it's translated, but it is on Facebook, and everybody can read it. As a manga, it's very visual, so you don't really need to read it. All the story is very visual and very easy to understand what's going on. Also, it's part of the movie story, so we know exactly what they're saying in the scene.
Well, and so that was on our 454 Underworld in 4K episode, and we had another comment on there. os.u.novakovic said, "That was me, haha. I asked about the playbooks on Reddit, and you are the only one who replied." So yeah, sorry, I should have said your name before on there. I meant to, and I think I forgot.
I hope you've collected all the playbooks because they're really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can get those.
He was waiting for more, and it's been he had pointed out that it's been several years since those came out.
That's right.
Yeah, and so we had some discussion points, feedback that didn't make it to episode 454 because we had asked about what do people like and what don't they like and stuff like that, and some of these were posted after we had already recorded. So Anthony Gordon said, missed the polls, but you should keep doing any type of episode that you still have fun with. The watch-alongs are great. The D&D game started out great, but recent episodes aren't as fun because it sounds like some players aren't really engaged. So, yeah, that was the feedback there. Matt Batten said, interviews, New Age audio commentaries. I don't listen to the D&D episodes. And Anthony Gordon says, another great watch-along. I don't think these really need to be Barker adjacent. What makes these episodes entertaining is hearing you guys talk about a movie you really enjoy and throwing in facts as you do. So I thought that was interesting because we do make an effort to try to do whatever we do is sort of Barker adjacent or related in some way, from the A to Z of horror, or the one. Yeah,
thematically, that's the reason we're doing it, is because we're going through the list of movies that are in that suggestion of movies by Clive Barker.
Or we did the last movie star, right? Because it had Clive Barker paintings in it.
Yeah, we did Sabrina was a Kickstarter thing. Because it had Clive Barker paintings in it. So that's true.
And I don't know that we would do a TV show again. That was too much. That took up too much of our podcast content. For me, it was more. I wasn't super crazy about Sabrina. It didn't seem like it was a show for my demographic in particular. But I still had fun seeing that and watching whenever the Clive paintings were there. Some of the stories were good. Some episodes were fun. Yeah. I'll try to be more engaged in the D&D. And okay, yeah, that'll be good. Kamui003 on Discord says, I actually think it's a good thing that you guys have a variety of episode types. It gives you a good range of topics to cover. Look at it like this. There might not always be a new release or news to cover every time you record an episode, so having commentaries and the D&D game help with maintaining a consistent schedule. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of our idea for that. I mean, and a lot of podcasts do the same thing every week. I couldn't imagine, if we only did interviews, how much work it would be to put those things together every week. And sometimes when we do interviews, the person drops out at the last minute. And when that happens, we scramble and put a news episode together. But for those people who've got nothing, what do they do? I don't know. Maybe they've got a bunch of them in the can that they just like, okay, let's throw out this other one that we recorded.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I know sometimes some podcasts, the big professional ones, will have like a backlog of episodes that, they can. But usually it's not a big backlog. Maybe they'll have 2 or 3 episodes and that's it.
Those podcasts also have a paid crew of people.
Yeah, an editor, a publicist.
Yeah, right. And a talent person that's like, their job is to find interviews to do.
Booker, booking agency and everything. So we do this all ourselves, and most of it is you. So it's really like it's a small scale operation.
Right. Yeah. And I also like the variety because, we're trying to cover everything, related to Clive Barker, which he doesn't just write books and he doesn't just make movies. He paints and stuff and he's writing poetry. So we're trying to kind of be more prolific and do more things also, kind of like Clive Barker does.
This reminds me that there is one facet of Clive Barker's work that I don't think we've covered as extensively as the other parts of his work. Photography. I don't think we've gotten into a lot of the Clive Barker photography.
No, we haven't much. I mean, we've talked about the books as news and stuff, but I don't think we've covered them as a feature.
Clive has also released a lot of photography. He used to have a Tumblr. He used to have a DeviantArt. I haven't been to those platforms in a while, so I'm not sure how much of that is left. I know that some of that stuff was closed down years ago, and I'm not sure if all that stuff is still up. But I think we could benefit from adding to the variety of themes we've covered for Clive Barker stuff. If we could get into his photography, that might be interesting. It could make for a very interesting series of maybe a video episode where we could share some of our favorite photos that Clive has made or something like that. I mean, these are just ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be not suitable for work.
No.
If it was video. And
it would
if
be
it's
adult,
audio, it's just us describing it, which we've done with art books before. But it's kind of like a read-along, right? As when we went through the art books, we were like, okay, now we're on page, 1275 or whatever of the...
I appreciate you bringing that up because that is a valid point that could make this a little harder to do. Because, for example, when we put episodes on YouTube, if we have graphic imagery, it might get taken down. So maybe we should, I don't know, we should workshop this idea for a photography episode. Yeah. Maybe we can censor the photos, although I'm not comfortable doing that to Clive's art. But I don't know.
I'm not either. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd rather do audio than that. Or maybe another platform, I'm not sure. Or it could be Patreon only.
Oh,
but
yeah.
That's still... Yeah, I guess you can host videos on Patreon. I don't know.
We'll talk about that off the episode. Yeah. If you want, I don't know. I mean, we could talk now. And if you want, we can leave this discussion for a Patreon special, like a behind-the-scenes discussion on planning out some episodes. Maybe that could be an option. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's think about that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had one more discussion comment from our Discord. Damon Noob said, "No, it's good. You just don't I just don't understand D&D, but maybe in the future, when I ever get to play it myself."
Okay, so he likes the variety of episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand D&D 100% myself. Like, I just want to say that this is the first D&D game I ever played in my life with Ryan, and in my life, really. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm falling sometimes into the trappings that first-time players do, becoming murder hobos and not knowing the full extent of the options at my disposal with the game. Sometimes that an experienced D&D player would have, like, I try to watch podcasts and see how they play, like critical role and stuff like that.
Yeah. Have you gone through a whole episode of that?
I saw bits and pieces of it. Okay. I haven't seen a whole episode of it yet. It's a little bit of a commitment, but like you said, the only thing to do is like mainly just go through the book. The rule book is a productive way of having an idea of how to play and what is at your disposal. Maybe I should go back to the book.
But you guys, we've done 23 episodes of this. So if you average it at 3.5 hours per episode, which a lot of them are longer than that, but it's about 80 hours that you guys have played. So you guys aren't really new anymore.
Right.
We've been playing it for, since December of 2020. So 4 years, almost 4 years we've been playing it.
That's true. But I guess it's still superficial. Despite being working on this for a long time, I think it's still a little superficial. Because also technology helps a lot with not knowing how to play the game and easing you into the game. Roll20 and D&D Beyond are very useful. Yeah. Super useful for like making the game accessible for first-time players to join in with other players.
Yeah, well, and also makes it possible to play with people that aren't in the same room with you, which is, you know. I mean, I could have started a game, I guess, with people in Fairbanks, and the downward, you know, the bad thing about that would be that none of them would know anything about Barker stuff. And so just even going like, okay, let's make a character, I would have to be like, they wouldn't even know where to start. Because with you guys, I could just say, okay, you know, what kind of character in the whole Clive Barker universe, what kind of character do you like? And you were able to say, I'd like to be a Eurydimek. And Joe was like, I want to be a Nightbreed.
Yeah.
You know, and Musette wanted to be a Seerkind. And nobody in Fairbanks would be able to say those things. They'd be like, I don't know, what's available? You know, give me the book and I'll flip through it. And there's like, no, it's not one book, it's like 20 books.
That's true. The reason that this works well in the Clive Barker universe is because you've got players that are all fans of Clive Barker stuff.
Yeah.
The only problem is that we're not experienced D&D players, and the technology probably takes away some of the learning that we could do on our own, because when you write everything by hand, you probably learn it a little faster. So if we had to do dice rolls and, you know, be like having an actual page of our character sheet and working there, that would probably have gotten us more into the game. But Roll20 and D&D Beyond kind of take that a little away from you. So
it's a little bit of a crutch, but at the same time, playing a wizard on paper is really hard. Like knowing, like, because you have your spell book, and that's how many spells that you have in your spell book, and then you have how many spells you memorize for the day, which is a different number than the spells that are in your spell book. And you know, all the ones that and those are the ones that you have prepared for the day.
We've been assuming that every time we wake up that my character goes and prepares his spell book for the day, but you know,
well, and
it's not in my mind.
A lot of times it just ends up being the same spells that you already prepared the day before, and so they just kind of stay the same. But you can go through your spell book and today I'm not going to memorize this one, I'm going to memorize this other one. And the way it works with wizards is once they cast all their spells and use up all their spell slots, they forget them all and they have to rememorize them the next morning. And so that's why you're picking out different spells.
It's hard being a wizard.
Wizard is the toughest class out of all of them, and everybody in the whole group at the beginning wanted to be some kind of spellcaster. And
because that's what you associate with fantasy.
And for Lori, we adapted a character that she made in a fan fiction. And so that, you know, and her character resurrected people like right off the bat. And I was like, well, we can't exactly do that, you know, because that's something that a cleric would learn, you know, as they go up in levels. Yeah. But yeah, it's been fun. And some of my favorite parts are also like working with the artists to create cool stuff, you know, to surprise everybody with.
What else do we have here? Let's see. Well, thanks to Anthony Gordon, Matt Batten, and Damon Noob, along with Kamui 3, because you guys are giving us feedback, and that's the best thing we can ever get for this. Sometimes I feel sad when we ask in the group like, hey, you guys got any things for us? And nobody says anything. It makes me feel a little like, oh, you guys didn't read it, or you didn't have anything to say. And when you guys give us feedback, that is so good because it shows that you listen to it, and we love you for it. It's like, thanks for listening, and thanks for making this a better podcast.
Oh, yeah. So we want to give a shout out to our Patreon members. Thank you so much, everybody who supports us through Patreon: David Anderson, Eric Vanderholt, Daniel Elvin, and our returning sponsor, Don Bertram, Celebrate Imagination. You guys are really helping us out a lot. This is our first year Don. Doing this with Patreon, so we appreciate it. And coming soon, I plan on doing a collector's corner of Jericho. I've been talking about that for a few episodes. I haven't put it together yet, mainly because I've been trying to think about how much detail do I want to get in. Because we did a whole episode about Jericho, and we even interviewed the composer, Chris Velasco. So,
that's right.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that again, but I want to show off, basically just be showing off the collection and talking. Yeah,
like a show off your stuff.
Yeah,
so that kind of thing, like showing off your collection and maybe talking a little bit about how much fun you've had or when you bought it or if there's any stories you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll do that if I have time tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to edit this episode. Maybe I'll be able to get that done. But a lot of times I can't get these things done just because I spend so much time on the regular episodes.
And apart from that, we're also going to be playing again a little bit more with our Jericho Squad 77 game. We still have to find what's going on with the heart of Epexamendios. And Nightbreed soundtrack discussion, the Entrada label that was the release, the Entrada label release of the Nightbreed soundtrack. We're going to be talking about that, the 2 CD. I'm looking at my copy of it right now. Awesome. And so we're going to be talking about that and the great cues that are on these CDs. Yeah. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Phantasmagoria Hellraiser interview book. We still have to read a bunch of stuff. It's a very dense, very heavily packed volume of Hellraiser lore, right?
Yeah.
A review of 4K Rawhead Rex. I don't have the 4K yet, but maybe I'll get it for this one. Otherwise, I can just talk about the movie.
Do you have the Blu-ray of Rawhead Rex? I think you might have that one. Right?
I think so. Yeah, I could just play that. Yeah.
It's possible they might be exactly the same except for higher resolution.
Yeah, the specials are probably going to be the same.
Because I think they're both Kino Lorber and they look exactly the same on the packaging and stuff. So I just need to put them together and look at them and see if it's all the same stuff.
Sure. And also maybe I'll buy the Blu-ray of the 4K in the meantime because this is going to be a few weeks from now. So and then we'll do more Boom Hellraiser comic discussion like we did today. And we'll cover a little more of discs 2, 3, and 4 of the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment Blu-ray set, 4K Ultra HD.
Yeah, so we already
probably
did 1
with
and
Peter
2,
Atkins.
so we'd be covering 3 and 4.
Yeah, we'll probably get joined for some of those with writer Peter Atkins, writer of the screenplays for Hellraiser 2, 3, 4. Stay tuned for that.
But this podcast having no beginning will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Leave a message for us using the SpeakPipe link on our blog. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.